of evidence I've seen persuades me that we are on a course leading to tragedy. When I think about the array of global climate, of global threats, think about this. Terrorism, epidemics, poverty, the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, all challenges that know no borders. The reality is that climate change ranks right up there with every single one of them. That the very same layer of gases that has made life possible on Earth from the beginning now makes possible the greatest threat that the planet has ever seen.
Okay, so you just heard Secretary of State John Kerry say that global warming, aka climate change, is a bigger threat than terrorism or weapons of mass destruction, which is kind of insane to me because the temperature's only gone up about 1 degree in the last 100 years. Okay, so I'm in Manhattan. Which do I prefer? That it's an extra degree outside or a nuclear weapon goes off in the Upper West Side? I will go with the extra degree outside than the nuclear weapon. That's just me. I would also imagine that more people would die if a nuclear weapon went off in Manhattan than, say, it was 78 degrees instead of 77. But that's just me. So I decided to do a little search and found, I did a search for deaths due to global warming. And everything I found is basically some very scaremongering kind of unspecific headlines. Global warming leads to 150,000 deaths a year. World Health Organization says 140,000. Global warming causes 300,000 deaths a year. Climate change kills 5 million people a year. You know, if it was science, it would either be 150,000, 140,000, or 5 million. That's not very scientific to be so far, all over the map. So what I did is, as I read these, all of them were contributing all kinds of things to global warming, like malaria, infectious diseases, famine, hurricanes, tsunamis. But the problem is they are not showing that global warming caused the rise of tsunamis or the rise of Category 5 hurricanes or the rise of malaria. They just say there's global warming and there's a rise in malaria. Obviously, they're linked. Well, that's like saying Chinese people eat a lot of rice, so rice causes black hair. It's a logical fallacy called correlation equals causation. They don't. You can have all kinds of things that correlate to each other, but you have to prove a causation. Saw this map of the United States, and every one of these showing what could happen in the top 40 U.S. cities. So let's Portland. Climate change could cause over 700 more heat-related deaths in Portland. Climate change could cause 300 more deaths in San Diego. It could cause 1,000 more heat-related deaths in Los Angeles. It could cause 300 more heat-related deaths in Tampa, Florida by 2099, by the way. So this is in the next 100 years. So how scientific is it to say this could cause that in the next 100 years? That's not scientific at all. We can talk about terrorism, and we can say, well, how many specific deaths are being caused by terrorism compared to global warming? So I decided to pull up some exact numbers on terrorism, and we'll see how that stacks up against this huge threat of global warming, according to Secretary of State John Kerry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look into the last 30 days, and I'm only going to include terrorist attacks where more than 10 people are killed at one time, because it would take way too long if I listed every single terrorist attack. So I'm just going to jump around, and we will go through some of these terrorist attacks. And we're going to find out if these terrorist attacks are more dangerous than a 1 degree increase in temperature. So here we go. January 19th in Pakistan, we had 22 people killed and ambushed by Sunni fundamentalists. January 20th, Baghdad, Iraq, 14 people are killed by Sunni fundamentalists. January 20th in Nigeria, Sharia gunmen fire indiscriminately into a village, killing 19. January 20th in Syria, a suicide bomber detonates himself, killing 16.
Allahu Akbar!
Pakistan, 13 people are ripped to shreds by a suicide bomber.
Allahu Akbar!
In Somalia, 15 people are killed by an Al-Shabaab assault. January 21, Pakistan, over 24 people are killed by a suicide bomber. Go forward just a little bit to January 26th in Nigeria. 53 people at a church service are slaughtered by pro-Sharia gunmen. January 26th in Nigeria, 85 villagers are massacred by Boko Haram Islamists. Many were cut down or burned alive in their own homes. I'm sure they would much rather deal with global warming, by the way. I'm sure those people would be a lot happier if all they had to deal with was a 1-degree increase in temperature. January 27th, 13 people are killed by a suicide bomber.
Allahu Akbar!
January 30th in Baghdad, 18 people are killed by suicide bombers from Al-Qaeda. January 31st in Yemen, 15 soldiers are killed by Al-Qaeda. Also on January 31st in Nigeria, a pastor and 11 people are slain by pro-Sharia activists. February 1st in Aleppo, Syria, 26 people are blown to bits by suicide bombers.
Allahu Akbar!
February 2nd in Syria, 16 people are killed by a suicide bomber. February 3rd, 18 people are machine gunned by Boko Haram Islamists. Well, at least they didn't have to deal with global warming. February 4th in Baghdad, Iraq, 18 people are killed in a series of suicide bombings. Also, February 4th, 34 people are massacred by Muslim gunmen in Nigeria. February 5th, Baghdad, 2 car bombs go off, killing 12. February 6th in Aleppo, Syria, a British suicide bomber kills 46.
Allahu Akbar!
February 9th in Syria, Islamists massacre 40. February 11th in Iraq, terrorists kill 16 Iraqi soldiers. Also, February 11th in Nigeria, Islamists slaughter 51 residents. February 13th in Pakistan, 13 people are killed by a suicide bomber. February 14th in Syria, 48 are killed by a car bomb. And February 15th, Nigeria, 106 villagers, mostly Christians, are hacked to death by terrorists shouting praises to Allah. So it's safe to assume, as far as things go, I'd say terrorism is probably a bigger threat than global warming. And I'm sure all these dead people would be more than happy to have to deal with 1 degree hotter temperature. Anyway, have a nice day, guys.